The main point here is Bannon gets it. Darren understands it, but he's typical intellectual kind of journalist. He's making the case flawlessly about the series of reversals. But what Bannon's saying is the FBI, the DOJ, if you watch this further, he'll go into the Department of Homeland Security. The fact that the intelligence services under Trump were betraying Trump. They had the laptop. They had the Hunter Biden laptop since 2019, and they did nothing with it. When they're asking in a government hearing to the assistant director of the FBI over there, well, you have the laptop. He's not sure if they have it, if they even have the hard drive. They lost it. They went down into infinite detail in Michigan to try to set something up, but they lose a laptop. And they don't even know what department has it or if they even have it. It was fortunately backed up and sent to them again. This is it's like corrupt police department trying to put evidence into the pockets of innocent civilians in order to convict them and build a story. This is what we're not going to let go, what I'm not going to let go, because I believe this is what they did on January 6th. I believe this is the way they roll. This is the way they operate. And the fact that Trump takes Chris Christie is the one who recommended, Christopher Wray for heading the FBI. And William Barr comes out of the Bush administration. The problem is we don't have genuine American loving populists. We have political hacks that are playing their own game. And it bothers me, and I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to keep drilling down on it because this story, I don't want Whitmer to come out of this unsmeared. And I certainly don't. We're going to have to get ahead of these things because they need, you say, well, where's the accountability? Here's the problem. They should be getting Stephen D'Antonio, who was sent to D.C. after he headed up this. He should be on the Hill explaining what in the world was going on that they were trying so desperately to stack the deck with 50% of the participants in this plot feeding the plot from the FBI. There needs to be accountability, and it will not happen. It's one thing if it takes place, and you and I got to look at a news cycle and go, well, what can you do? It's another thing if they're not held accountable, because that's a slap in the face of us, Americans, that they do this stuff, they get away with it, and they move on to the next nonsense. It's like I was talking today. We forgot about the Biden's crack pipe. Remember the crack pipe solution? Why don't we give the crack pipes over there to the homeless people and people that are out there in California and kind of make life a little easier for them, have healthy drugs versus drugs off the street. Well, they cook these crazy things up. They have nobody in the room, evidently, who is thinking like an American. And they're thinking like a bunch of students coming out of the social studies program at the university, and they're coming up with their ideas. Then it gets shot down. We forgot about it. But you know what? Do you know what the stepsister of that crazy idea is? Biden's coming out with that same group saying, let's give cell phone. We got 1 million immigrants going to come pouring over the borders illegally. Why don't we get them all cell phones? Don't that be a good idea? That's crack pipe 2.0. Give all the illegals 1 million people breaking into America. Give them some cell phones. That's a good idea. And then we'll be able to have them talk to us. We'll talk to them, and we can kind of like coordinate the traffic. Anyway, we're going to come back to that because the U.S. jury acquits the two most potentially convictable plot members. And thank God a jury of normal Americans said, yeah, right, and then kicked out the FBI's case. They should explain why they're setting Americans up like this. All right.
I just want to know, did they know each other? Like, were they all undercover to a point where they didn't realize there were so many FBI agents there? You know what I'm saying? I have so many like practical questions. I'm like, was this just like an HR mistake? We're like, okay, so you're going to send 3, great. And then somebody else sent 3. And they end up with like one dude that's really there. And like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's so
Yeah, and I want to know, what did they
bananas.
pay the participants? So you're going to incentivize somebody to try to seduce a neighbor into a crime? So who got cars? Who got car payments? How do they compensate the non-bureau members who are FBI informants and participants in the plot. And the reality is, where the FBI does this is 3 of them know each other, but the rest of them they don't know. So they're actually talking to each other that are all, and in the chat thread, you've got the FBI, not even knowing who else is in on the plot, and agents and informants talking to each other. And then there's the other guys in the chat thread, and they're kind of like, yeah, okay. And then they chime in. And so you see, it's not until they all show up in a room that you realize, you mean you're working for them and you're working, and you find out that 11 out of 18 are actually all working on cornering the other 7 knuckleheads into doing a crime.
But that, are those the numbers? Because I don't have the article in front of me for some reason, but is that how many were actual FBI informants? I believe, what's the ratio we're talking about here?
There were among the 14 alleged right-wing militants arrested in October, 14 alleged right-wing militants, we find out that they have, that of the 14, so you might have had like 20 of them in the group, or 20, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. I don't even have that data, but it's like, but for the jury to acquit them, it had to have been in proportionate amount of people that were involved with the FBI. It was
a disproportionate amount. It's a total of 11 that were working in collusion to trap 14.
Yeah.
So maybe you got like 25 people involved with this thing, and half of them are actually trying to trap the other ones.
Well, my question too is, did Governor Whitmer know about the plot, or was she like if somebody were to come after, some like me or somebody I know, maybe I didn't know the FBI was involved, or did she know? Because it's even more messed up if the FBI terrorized her in that way, a threat against her life in that way, with a plan to try to, entrap, like you're saying, maybe 7 people.
Oh, sure.
I'm like, is she a victim in this?
I can imagine that they're saying, we've got this thing covered. Don't worry about it. We got it covered. We're investigating. Yeah. So she is paranoid about right-wing extremism. She's got that further narrative cooked in her liberal brain.
I hope you enjoyed that excerpt of the podcast, but don't miss the rest of it. Visit us over at the podcast, lancewallnall.com/podcast to get